Hello and welcome to D&D with High School Students, Season 3, Character Making Sessions with Skyla. Are you excited?
I'm so excited.
Are you a little scared?
I'm really scared.
Okay, so Skyla's never played D&D before, so we're going to do her character making session. Now, before we started rolling on cameras, you looked over the races and the classes.
Yes.
And one of the classes popped out to you. You're like, ooh, that's the one. Which one was it?
The
Druid.
Druid.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then we looked at races. So I think we know where we're going to go.
Yeah.
So here's your character sheet.
Okay.
You don't have to name your character yet, but let's
Okay.
write your name up there, player name.
Okay.
And then we figured out that you want to be a Druid. So where it says class and level, write Druid 3 because we're starting out at level 3 for this game.
Okay.
Now, background we'll get to in a minute. I'm going to explain those options. But race, you said you'd like to be a Wood Elf. So write Wood Elf in there. So before we get into your roles, I want to go over the backgrounds with you. So you have a player's handbook there.
Yes.
Do you know how we got these?
No.
Skyla, one of our fans literally donated 3 of these books. Each one of them are like $50.
That's
so
crazy.
yeah, that was really cool.
nice.
And he wanted to remain anonymous. In fact, me just saying he is kind of a spoiler.
Yeah.
But it was a very nice gift
Yeah,
from a
that is
fan.
nice.
So now we can all look up things. So I'm gonna go through these things. So turn to page. It's just like school. 127. So a background is so you're a Druid, but a
Yes.
background is kind of like what else have you done other than just nature and Druidism, right? Because there could be a lot of different things. So the first one is acolyte. It's basically somebody who spent a lot of time in a temple studying religion, studying history, and kind of learning and developing your knowledge of religion and faith. Okay. That's and you get things. Every background has different things. So let's see how it says like skill proficiencies
Yeah.
and languages. So that's one option. A charlatan is kind of like a con man.
Okay.
So like maybe you spent your life touring around and kind of conning people for different things. So you get a little bit of like deception and sleight of hand, which is kind of like, pickpocketing, that kind of stuff. That's another option. Criminal, much like what you think a criminal would be, but it could be any number of backgrounds. You could be a burglar, a hired killer, pickpocket, smuggler. I don't know if these fit into the jam of your nice connected cosmic druid,
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure.
let's keep looking.
Okay.
Entertainer. So there's an option that could work, right?
Yes.
Actors, dancers, musicians of different types, poets,
Perfect.
storytellers. That might be a cool option to mix with a druid,
Yes.
and they get some neat stuff. Guild artisan. Now, guild artisan is basically you are an artisan, like a craftsman, an actual. So see this whole list down there?
Yeah.
Those are all different things. So, cooks, glass blowers, jewelers, calligraphers.
Okay.
That may be an option for a druid.
Yeah.
Because maybe in your connection to nature, you also do some crafting, art kind of things. Okay. Then hermit. And this is probably one of the most common backgrounds that people pick for druid because they think of a druid as somebody who lives off on their own secretly in the woods. And that's fine if you want to do that. But I also kind of think that when you're making a character, sometimes it's nice to break from a stereotype.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what's a good stereotype? Like in movies, a lot of Arabs are cast as like terrorists.
Yes.
What if your Arab wasn't a terrorist? What
Yeah.
if he was just,
Dude.
a guy
Yeah.
that, maybe he's like a financial planner. Oh, that's sort of stereotypical too. I don't know. Anyway, so then you have noble. So a noble is literally someone born to a noble family. Now you might be like, well, that doesn't fit with druid. It could. Maybe in your backstory, you were born into a noble family, and you learned all the etiquette and all the fancy stuff. But then you're like, dude, this is not my jam. This is not who I want to be. I want to be connected to the cosmos. So you left your noble family and went out in the woods and found nature and the spirits.
Right.
Just see how I just came up
No,
with that.
yeah, that was good.
So that's what our backgrounds are for. They're to help you flesh out the character. So it's not just like, I'm a sketchy hippie that lives in the woods. Outlander, again, is, a very common pick for a druid. It means basically someone who grew up away from civilization. So it'd be an easy fit for a druid.
Yeah.
Because there's some benefits with Outlander too. Like you really get to know kind of the areas outside of civilization. And then we have Sailor. I don't know how Sailor and Druid would work. I'm sure they could, though. if you wanted to be somebody who, I guess if you were a druid that was more connected to the coast, like a, like a kind of a California hippie who was like, like water is your preferred element and stuff, and you,
That would be cool.
or you're like you're familiar with sailing and that kind of stuff. So see, any one of these, if you think could work, even a soldier. Maybe you were a soldier, and then too much war just ravaged your soul, and you had to escape from that life, and you went off on your own. And then the last one is urchin, which is basically like a street kid.
Okay.
So, and again, that doesn't intuitively, hey, why would an urchin turn into a druid? Maybe you got sick of living on the streets and begging and stealing and stuff, so but you still have this in your background. So it kind of comes down to like picking one of those.
Okay.
And then working that into your character. Do any of those kind of jump out as being cool?
Yeah, the entertainer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So they have a thing where you can roll.
Uh-huh.
If you're like, I'm just not sure, you could just roll. But you could look at this list and pick. And if there's something not on the list, you could go with that too.
I'm thinking poet.
Poet.
Yeah.
Perfect. So under background, write entertainer.
Okay.
Now, each background comes with some cool extra bonus swag that you get. So the first thing is skill proficiency. See where it says acrobatics and performance?
Yes.
So this is your skill proficiencies. So what you're going to do when you have proficiency in something is you fill in the little circle like a test.
Okay.
And acrobatics, and then
fill
go
in the
down to
circle.
performance, and you fill in the circle. And that means that you have proficiency in it. So it means you're just a little bit extra better at that thing.
Okay.
Okay. Then tool proficiencies. Disguise kit and one type of musical instrument. So down here, other, just write down disguise kit,
Okay.
and then you could pick a musical instrument. It needs to be something in the vein of like fantasy. So think like medieval or, even primitive. Like if you're like, I want to play a drum set made out of like bones and a cow skull.
Oh, that'd be
Or
cool.
or like a like a wooden flute. Yeah, like Neely picked like a harp, So it could be any, and if you can't think of it right now, you could fill that in later.
Yeah, I'll fill that in.
Okay,
I have
so
to think of a good one.
some kind of a musical thing. Ooh, maybe you're like a beat poet. And you have like a little like drum, and you're like
Yes.
doing a little while you're like spitting freestyle rhymes.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, then after that it says equipment. So you get a bunch of free crap. So you get a musical instrument. You can write that down later.
Okay.
The favor of an admirer, whatever, that's unimportant. A costume and a pouch containing 15 gold. So this is your money. GP is gold pieces, so write 15 in that square.
Okay.
The last and probably coolest thing of entertainer is this thing called the feature. By popular demand. You can always find a place to perform, usually in an inn or a tavern, but possibly with a circus, theater, even in a noble's court. At such a place you receive free lodging and food of a modest or comfortable standard, as long as you perform each night. In addition, your performance makes you something of a local figure. When strangers recognize you in a town, they typically take a liking. So people will like buy you food or drinks, and you know what I mean? So it's kind of like you can make your way just doing this thing.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's your background. That is, we kind of went further. Now we're going to go back. Now we're going to go back to look at your race and your class.
Okay.
So elves are very cool because for a lot of reasons. Number one, they're one of the old races. They've lived and they can live for hundreds of years, right? They have, they're about the same size as humans, but they have pointy ears. A lot of times they have different features, like their eye color or hair color might be different.
Okay.
So you can decide all that stuff.
That's cool. Okay.
But if you go to page 23,
I'm on it.
look at how you're following everything so well. So it says elf traits. Your dexterity score increases by 2. And that's good because even though wisdom is your primary trait for elves, you want to have a high dexterity so that you don't get killed right away.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get a bunch of other cool stuff. So, dark vision. See where it says dark vision?
Yeah.
Basically, you could see in the dark
That is
for
so
60
cool.
feet. Like at nighttime when other people are like, I need a torch. You don't need a torch.
Right.
If you're in a pitch black room and nobody can see anything, you could still see a little bit.
I did that one too.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Okay.
So
That's
under
cool.
here, under features and traits, write down dark vision, 60 feet. This is another dope thing. Keen senses. So keen senses gives you proficiency in perception. So go ahead and put a circle next to perception.
Okay.
And now, if you look at perception, Skyla, do you notice there's something in parentheses? What does it say?
Whiz.
Whiz. So each one of these proficiencies, each one of these skills is, you get a bonus depending on what your score is in that thing. And you're going to have a high wisdom, which means you're going to be very perceptive. See? So that works out really well. Fae Ancestry. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. That is incredibly dope. So write down Fae Ancestry.
Okay.
And then, like, underneath it, write down, like in parentheses underneath it, advantage, saves versus charm, comma, magic can't put you to sleep.
Okay.
There's no really short way to write that. So what that means is this, like if some creature tries to charm you or put you to sleep using magic, you get to save against their magic. And advantage means instead of rolling 1 dice, you get 2 dice and you get to pick the better of the 2.
Okay,
that's what advantage means.
Okay.
And then you literally just can't be put to sleep. So if some wizard's like, sleep, everybody else might drop and you'll be like, no.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Okay.
So then we're at trance. Elves don't need to sleep. That's a mic drop right there. Okay. So what they do is they can get the effects of a whole night of sleep in 4 hours, and basically they just zone out. They just, it's like meditating. They just go like,
That's awesome.
and then, so write down trance.
Okay.
The hugeness of this cannot be underestimated, because normal spellcasters, to get their spells back, typically have to have what's called a long rest, and that's like usually 8 hours. You could do that in 4.
Yeah, that's cool.
So nature, basically in your 4-hour trance, you're just like reconnecting with nature and the cosmos.
That is so
and then when
cool.
you wake up from your trance, you get all your spells back. All right, languages. Now languages go over here on this side.
Okay.
So languages, you speak, just write these down. Common and Elvish, which is good, because I don't think anybody else in the group speaks Elvish. So now you guys have a whole bunch of different languages that you got. Now, that's the basic, any elf has that. Then there's two different kinds of sub-races of elves. There's high elves and wood elves. We talked before, starting with, well, actually there's 3, but wood elf. So you also get a bonus to wisdom. We'll write that down later.
Okay.
You have proficiency with longsword, short bow, and longbow, which is pretty awesome because druids don't normally have, I think they might have short bow but not longbow.
Okay.
Which is nice. So if you are in a situation where there's a combat and you're fighting a bunch of monsters, you're not wearing armor. So you're like, Neely might run up and be like, I'm going to go beat ass, because she's wearing like all this armor. You are going to stay behind and either cast spells or help out your group or sit there with a bow and just pick people off, right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we'll get into picking up all your stuff later.
Okay.
Here's another crucial this fleet of foot, your base walking speed is 35. So where it says speed, write down 35.
Okay.
Normal people walk at 30. Little people, like gnomes and halflings, and I think dwarves, walk at 25. So you are just a little bit faster than everybody else, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Mask of the Wild. So write down Mask of the Wild here. And that's the one where you can hide basically in nature.
Oh.
You can hide in nature. Where normal people would have to make a hiding roll, like a stealth roll, and have a hard time doing that, you can literally like walk up to a bush, or like if there's a fog, you could just like lean up against a rock. You basically can not like a chameleon, but you're really good at hiding.
Okay.
Okay. So those are your race things that you get.
Okay.
Before we go on to Druid and all your class things that you get, let's do your rolls.
Okay.
So, in this game, there are a lot of fancy dice. See?
Yeah, they have.
But you roll up a character, and in my game, I kind of have some special rules to give all the players more options for how to be kind of better or more heroic.
Okay.
So, we have 4 dice there. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll the dice. You're going to roll 4. You're going to take the best 3. Okay? So here, I'm going to do a sample.
Yeah, okay.
You're going to roll 4 dice. You're going to take the best 3. And for 2 of your 6 rolls, I will let you choose to re-roll the ones. So if I look at this roll, 5,
Yeah.
1, 1, 1, 1. That would you'd want to be like that's going to be one of my re-rolls, which isn't much better. But I can keep re-rolling the 1 as long as I call it. So now instead of a 7, it's an 11. Okay, so you add up the best 3.
Oh.
So you're going to be rolling four different times. We're going to add up the best 3, and if you have a roll where there's a lot of 1s, you want to make that one of your re-rolls.
Okay.
I will guide you.
Please guide me.
Okay. All right. Good start. So 6, 6, and 2. So you start off with, now what you're going to do is just write it down in the margin.
Okay.
So write down 14. That's awesome. The average is 8. So you're well above average for your first roll. Keep going. Okay. So that's not a bad roll.
Okay.
You could say, you know what, I'll take that, and then you'd have a 5 plus 3, so you'd have an 11.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say, I want to make this one of my rerolls, and then you just get to reroll that 1. My advice to you is just take the 11, because you might have a roll later where you have like 3 1s, and then you'd be screwed.
Okay.
Because an 11's not bad.
Yeah.
There you go. 13. Now, get them going. You got to get the mojo going. This is a lot of people believe that dice are lucky or unlucky. So it's what you put into it.
Okay,
Reach into the cosmos.
I'm ready.
You want 6s and 5s.
6s and 5s.
Okay, not bad. See? 13.
All right.
6, 4, 3. 13. Now, how many are we at?
4.
Okay, so no matter what, you haven't used any of your rerolls, and you get 2 of them. So whatever you roll, if you have any 1s, you'll be rerolling them.
Awesome.
So get that mojo going.
Okay, I'm getting it going. Whew.
Killing it. 11.
I think you're doing the math. 'Cause
You know what? I'm good at basic math because of this game. Literally. There you go.
That was good.
16.
That was good.
All right. So that is solid.
Okay.
You don't. Your lowest roll's an 11, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that part's done.
Okay.
Now we get the fun part, which is where we assign those. So
Okay.
you remember that wisdom's important,
Yes.
right? And you get a bonus to wisdom as a wood elf,
Okay.
and you get a bonus to dexterity just being an elf.
Okay.
So here's the question. If you put that 16 in wisdom, it becomes a 17, which gives you a +3 to any wisdom-based spells or any wisdom-based skill checks. So that's what you should do.
Okay.
So that 16, right in the big box for wisdom, write 17. And then under it in that little circle, write +3. So the little circle, that's your modifier.
Okay.
Okay, so then put a line through 16 so we know we used it.
Okay.
Now, 14, 11, 13, 13, 11. 14's your best roll. If you put the 14 in dexterity, because you're an elf, it becomes a 16, which is really good for your general livelihood. So
Okay,
maybe do that.
do that.
So write 16, and again, that's a +3.
16 and a +3.
Okay, what do you got left? 13, 13. So a 13 in Constitution, for sure. And that gives you a +1. That'll grant you more hit points, which is crucial.
Okay.
Where to put the last 13? Well, this is going to be up to you.
Okay.
You could have a nice personality and be persuasive.
Mm-hmm.
You could be somewhat intelligent, more intelligent than the average person, or you could be a little stronger than the average person. Now, from a practical perspective, strength is for combat that is melee. In other words, like hand-to-hand with weapons. I don't know how much of that you'd be doing, so I don't think strength is necessarily that important for you.
Okay, good.
Intelligence is going to affect skills that you pick that are related to intelligence, like history and arcana, investigation, nature. Well, but you can have an 11 in either one of those, so it's not going to matter. Or charisma, if you want to be persuasive. Now, I will say the party is pretty persuasive already.
Okay. Okay.
Like, Neely has a stupid high charisma.
Really?
Yeah, because she's a paladin, she has to have a high charisma. Because her god grants her power based on her charisma.
Okay.
So you're pretty much open.
Okay.
And if you're not sure, I'll just tell you what I think you should do for a druid.
Do you think intelligence for 13?
I do.
Okay.
Because it affects nature. And you might be the only person with that skill.
Okay.
Which is probably... So that's
So
a
then-
+1. And then 11 strength and 11 charisma. Which are, again, still above average. 11s don't give you a bonus, but they also don't have a minus. So it's just, it is
Okay.
what it is.
Okay.
Okay, good. See
Awesome.
how easy that was?
Yeah, that
We're halfway
was.
done.
Okay.
This is the longest part of the process. After that, it's a cakewalk. All right, so Druids. And you're starting off at level 3, which is pretty exciting. Look how badass that Druid is. She's like,
Yeah.
yo, this tiger is my pet.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
really cool.
So Druids get 1d8 hit points per. So we're on page 65.
Okay.
For those of you following along at home, we're going on to the class. So 1d8 hit points. So hit points are basically how much damage you could take. It's a measure of your health.
Okay.
When you drop to 0 or below, you're unconscious and maybe dying.
Okay.
So hit points are important, and your constitution bonus gets added to your hit points. So you're going to have, at 3rd level, 24 hit points, and that +1 goes to each time. So you're going to have a total of 27. So where it says hit point maximum, write down 27 and like circle it. That's pretty good. Okay, you also get, as a druid, the proficiency with an herbalism kit. So write that down next to disguise kit, maybe right above it, herbalism kit. And herbalism will grant you certain things. Like, let's say somebody in the party gets poisoned and you need to come up with an antidote. You like know how to go out into nature and find that stuff and like mix up a thing and be like, here, take this.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You also get to choose 2 skills. So flip the page, and on the top of 66, these are your class skills. So you can choose 2 from that list: Arcana, Animal Handling, Insight, Medicine, Nature, Perception, Religion, and Survival. Now you may notice that you already have some of those skills,
Yeah.
right? Like you got Perception
Yes.
from your being an elf.
Yes.
Now, Insight, so Perception is like perceiving the physical world around you, like noticing if someone's sneaking up, or like if you're searching for something, if you can find it. It's all of your senses.
Okay.
Insight is your ability to perceive people's intent.
Okay.
Is someone lying to you, or are they being shifty or shady?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's not just people, it's animals too. You can use like insight on an animal to determine if it's hostile or friendly.
Okay.
So insight's kind of a valuable skill, and because you have a huge wisdom, you'd be really good at it. I think that might be something that would be beneficial.
Okay.
And then the other thing that we talked about is, you know, any of these other skills could be useful. Medicine could be useful. Nature could be useful.
Yeah.
Animal handling. Like if you want to be able to have pets, like, or friends, like trained animals. Or just to be able to like approach an animal and calm it so it's
That
not
is
like
cool.
hostile.
Yeah.
That's animal handling. So,
Okay.
I mean, I would say it's kind of hard because like nature is also good.
Right.
It's a knowledge of nature. And that would make sense for a druid.
Yeah. I like animal handling.
Okay.
I do.
So, animal handling is also affected by your wisdom. So put the circle there,
Okay.
and then you get to pick one more. Insight, medicine, nature.
I'm trying to decide between insight and nature.
You know what we should do is read it.
Oh, okay.
Let me find the description of those things and how they are played. Animal handling. When there is any question whether you can calm down a domesticated animal, keep a mount from getting spooked, or intuit an animal's intentions, then you do an animal handling check. Controlling your mount when you attempt a risky maneuver. Insight check decides whether you can determine the true intentions of a creature, such as searching out a lie or predicting someone's next move. Reading their body language, their speech habits, and their changes in mannerisms. Medicine lets you try to stabilize a dying companion or diagnose an illness. See,
Okay.
it's so hard.
Yeah. That's
So many things.
yes.
All right, and then nature. Nature check measures your ability to recall lore about terrain, plants, animals, weather, and natural cycles. Tough decisions. I don't know.
This is hard.
It is.
I think I'm gonna go with nature.
Okay.
I'm just feeling it.
All right. Go with your gut. So, now that we've picked out those things,
Yes.
okay, we can. Well, there's a lot more stuff that you get as a druid. You get spells, you get all these other abilities and powers. We'll get into that. But we kind of need to fill in the blanks, so to speak. So, as a druid, you remember I told you about saving throws? Like, you know, if somebody's trying to cast a spell at you. Okay, so certain saving throws are related to certain abilities, right?
Okay.
So here are the saving throws. As a druid, you have proficiency in intelligence and wisdom. So I'll explain what that means. So if you have a bonus, a modifier, then you put that in. So right now, strength, you have 0, so just put 0. And it's not bad, it's not good. It just means you roll the dice with nothing.
Okay.
Dexterity, you have a +3, so fill that in.
Oh, do I just fill in the circle?
No, not the circle.
Just 3.
Just +3.
Okay.
Constitution, you get a +1. Okay, so now when we get to intelligence, even though you only have a +1 here, oh, sorry, write down +2 for proficiency bonus. So even though you only have a +1 modifier in intelligence, because you have proficiency in it, you actually add that bonus. So it's a total of +3. Now your wisdom saving throw is going to be beast, right?
Right.
Because you have proficiency and you have a huge modifier, so that's +5.
Cool.
And then charisma is just 0. Okay. Now we do the same thing down this list. So start off with the things that you have proficiency in. So acrobatics. Wait. Do you have acrobatics? I feel like that's not a thing. Oh, is that it? Did that come from being an entertainer?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so acrobatics is your dex modifier +2, so that's +5,
Okay.
right? Animal handling is +5 because it's your wisdom mod. Now, arcana, intelligence. So you get a +1 in that. What's next?
Athletics.
0.
Deception.
0.
0. +1 for history. Wisdom +3. Or do I add the proficiency point?
Do you have the circle next to it?
Oh, no.
No. So it's just
Only
+3,
when- okay.
which is still great because you have a huge wisdom.
Okay.
So keep going down the line.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so now you kind of have the basic stuff fleshed out. Now we can continue with kind of filling in the blanks.
Okay.
So your initiative is what you roll when, say there's like an encounter, right? Whether it's going to be combat or whatever, there's a d20. Everybody's going to have one of these.
Okay.
And when you roll initiative, it's to find out kind of like who goes first. So the higher you roll, the better. So you would have a 13 plus your dexterity bonus. So your initiative is +3, which is great.
Okay.
Okay, your passive wisdom is your perception +10, so 15. It's really good.
Okay, good.
That means if you aren't actively searching, let's say you're just like, you guys are traveling out in the wilds,
Yeah.
like, and I know that something's sneaking up on you, and I want to see who notices it, and you didn't say, like, we're looking out to make sure we're not, you know what I mean? If you're just like, we're walking along, then I secretly roll, and let's say that whoever's sneaking up on you has an 8. Well, that kind of sucks. But let's say I rolled a 14. Everybody else with less than a 14 would not notice the person sneaking up, but you, with that 15, would notice.
Oh.
So that's where that
That is cool.
it's passive. It's kind of, and it works really well with your character because like you're more in tune with your surroundings. Okay. Now we're going to get into a few more of the druid things. So druids have their own secret language called Druidic, and it's a secret language that only druids speak.
Okay.
Okay, so write that down under your languages. Write down Druidic. Okay, then we're going to get into the spells. Now, I have to print out a spell sheet, so we're going to actually do choosing your spells and all that stuff off camera.
Okay.
Because it's a lot easier if you have a sheet because there's a lot of little things that you can fill in.
Okay.
But basically, as a druid, to kind of wrap up, you're going to get to pick out some spells that you'll be able to use and some really cool benefits, one of which is what I told you about before, Wild Shape.
Right.
So at 3rd level, you'll be able to turn into a creature that is, small, kind of not necessarily super powerful, although I think a black bear is actually one of the options. So it could
really
be, or a wolf, anything like that.
Right.
But at 3rd level, you also pick like your circle, and that's what kind of a druid you are. Okay. So there's the Circle of the Land, which are druids who basically, they're the keepers of the knowledge, the ancient knowledge of the land, and they get certain kind of spells and benefits, okay? Mm-hmm. Or the Circle of the Moon, which is maybe if you really like that wild shape thing, that's kind of cooler. Because Circle of the Moon is basically more, they're the guardians of the wild, right?
That's cool.
They're the protectors of nature and animals and stuff like that. But they're not like just passive. Like they can basically, if they need to fight, they can fight, right? Yeah. So the moon is kind of their source. And when you choose that circle, your wild shape is a little more powerful than a regular druid. Okay. So you can actually turn into a more powerful more powerful animal.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we'll look at those. We'll pick out your spells and all that stuff off camera so that we're ready for the first session. So that's it, people. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Making Characters, and we'll see you for the very first episode of Season 3 very soon.
Yay.
Stick around.
All right. Thanks for watching that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out a lot of the other great content that I have on the channel. It's really awesome. You should check it out. I know what I'm talking about.